Hello and welcome to Fight Network Boxing Weekly. Corey Erdman alongside Morgan Campbell. Notably absent is our bell this week. Someone in the office, I think, stole our bell. My bell is still attached to the wall that I may never get back, but I guess for these purposes, we'll touch gloves. You know, and then we'll get started like this. So much to talk about this week.
Yes.
A busy weekend has just passed. Notably, Timothy Bradley stopping Bradley-Rios, maybe the least likely of results.
I wouldn't
in this
have
fight.
guessed that.
No,
at all.
Certainly was not our prediction. So it has spawned plenty of discussion for this week. We had PBC last night with Kareem Murphy getting the win over Alejandro Gonzalez in the main event. So lots to talk about this week. But we'll start with Bradley and Rios. And Morgan, before we even get into the fight itself, let's take this in chronological order because there were things that really annoyed me before this fight even started.
And if you guys don't follow Corey on Twitter at Corey_Erdman, you'll learn after about a week or two of following him, there's a lot that annoys Corey about boxing Twitter, about boxing media Twitter, and about mainstream media parachuting into boxing. But go ahead.
To be fair,
there's a lot that annoys him.
To be fair, we wouldn't even have a show if not for these people. So
Right.
thank you. Continue to be idiots.
Right.
It gives us plenty of fodder.
Exactly.
This time, and this is going to keep happening. This will happen every single time this occurs. But the moment that Bradley-Rios came in on the scale, 0.2 pounds overweight. So that is 2 ounces, correct?
Yeah, my math isn't good, but
that
it's
is
not
2 ounces overweight. People absolutely lost their minds. So immediately, and I know what the tweets are going to be the second it happens. They're like, unprofessionalism. And,
Yes.
And then, and let me, just toss a caveat in there. I guess it is unprofessional to miss weight. It is not. You are not operating at the highest level of your profession by coming in overweight at the specific time. Granted, you have an hour or 2 hours afterwards to still make that weight. I suppose you are not being as professional as your opponent who has made weight by doing that. So, that said, number one, this is 0.2 pounds. That could be that your hotel scale was different than the scale on the stage. That could be.
That's all it is.
That's probably all it is.
That's all it is. And also, someone on Twitter is going to tweet you and say 0.2 pounds is 3 ounces, not 2 ounces.
Yeah, right. I'm sure they will.
I was over here doing the math in my head. What's 16 divided by 5?
Yeah.
Right.
3 ounces, 0.2 pounds overweight. But what really got me is where that discussion then went. So I tweeted out there. I said, what exactly are you mad about?
Right.
What are you mad about if Bradley-Rios comes in overweight? I said, is it because scale guy has to work an extra hour? He has to stick around. Are you mad about that? And the most common response was that, once again, it is unprofessional. But number two, we as the fans deserve more.
Deserve more than what? It's one thing if Bradley-Rios comes in 4 pounds overweight. If he comes in and he weighs in 150 pounds and he's like eating a candy bar on the scale.
Right.
That's unprofessional. That's saying to your opponent, I don't care about this contract that we've drawn up. I'm just going to do what I want to do. That wasn't it. As you said, it's 3 ounces. That's the difference in calibration between one scale and another scale.
Yep.
And if your hotel scale is off, or the scale that you brought with you is off, or the scale that you bought from Walgreens the night before the fight is off. That happened to your man Billy Costello if you read the Black Lights. Which is, you follow this show long enough, we will rip Thomas Hauser because he writes a bunch of crazy stuff. But the Black Lights is like a all-time pound-for-pound top boxing
Sportsbook. Yeah.
Yes, sportsbook, period. That's peak Thomas Hauser.
Yep.
But that's what happened to Billy Costello, right? He said, hey, I bought this scale at Walgreens or Dwayne Reed or whatever it is on the East Coast. I thought it would give me the right weight. Here I am, a half a pound over. I got to go run it off. What is it that the fans deserve?
That's my question.
Besides that the guy went out and made weight an hour later. Okay, we deserve that. We deserve for the fight to occur,
which it will. They'll find a way for it to occur regardless.
Because if he doesn't sweat off that extra 3 ounces. If he doesn't sweat off that extra 3 ounces, he pays a fine, forfeits part of his purse to Bradley.
Yeah,
the fight happens one way or the other. But fans are quite demanding, especially of Bradley-Rios, because Bradley-Rios is guilty of having missed weight. But Bradley-Rios in terms of the entertainment value he has consistently delivered to fans, has given a lot. Like, his fights are never boring. He's never fallen short.
Yep.
So if Bradley-Rios, again, misses weight by a few ounces, I'll allow him that because it wasn't, he didn't do it in the spirit of cheating, in the spirit of disrespect, in the spirit of getting an unfair edge. He dried himself out, missed by a couple of ounces. It happens. It turns out he lost 23 pounds to make this weight.
He looked like Skeletor.
Right.
Clearly he tried.
He was trying. So that this fight could go on for you.
Exactly.
The fans.
Now, the other thing is, like, you brought up the idea of guys missing weight and then getting an unfair advantage. I never got the sense that was what Rios was trying to do. I got the sense that, either he didn't train particularly intelligently or was physically not able to get down there. But either way, you talk about what you deserve as a fan. We pay money for our subscription to see these fights. Listen, think about what this guy stands to lose if he misses weight. Number one, monetarily, if he has to pay that fine.
Yes.
Number two, he has to come into a prize fight against a trained professional fighter, a prize fighter, out of shape, and he's going to get his head bashed in because
physically
he's not
compromised.
in shape.
But damn it, my $10 a month that I pay for HBO, it means more.
Come on. Like, do you know how ridiculous you sound when you talk about what you deserve as a fan?
No, if people knew how ridiculous they sounded, they wouldn't say what they say. And also, it's the beauty and the curse of Twitter is that no matter how ridiculous no matter how hot your takes are, no matter how ridiculous the things are that you spout, there's always some people on Twitter that they won't favorite your tweets anymore. They'll like your tweets. They'll retweet your tweets, and they'll tell you you're right.
Yep.
Yeah, we deserve more than what Bradley-Rios has already given over the course of his career.
The best action fighter of the generation.
Right.
You deserve more from him.
So we're going to flush all these great action fights down the toilet because you were 3 ounces heavier than we thought you would be at this moment.
And also, he wasn't trying to lie to you.
Right.
Listen to interviews from Bradley-Rios. Go back and there's a lot of them because Ali Sekbak is in the gym with him 24/7, so there's a lot to parse through. But listen to interviews with Bradley-Rios during camp. He tells you the worst he ever felt in his entire life. And these are interviews during camp.
Yes.
Worst he ever felt in his entire life was when he started this camp.
Starting this camp.
He wanted to quit. Is the worst shape he was ever in his entire life. He wasn't lying to you. He started this camp after an 11-month layoff and had to cut all of this weight. It's not like he was saying, I'm in the best shape of my career and then came in and was overweight. He wasn't lying to the fans. There was no reason for you to feel slighted by Bradley-Rios. He just didn't have it physically getting on the scale, and he didn't have it physically in the ring, which we'll get to.
And if you follow Bradley-Rios' career, you know that he is, even as he's moved up through the weight classes, he's always been a giant in every single weight class.
Yeah.
So when he was a lightweight, he was bigger than all the other lightweights. 140, same thing. Now he's gone all the way up to 147, and when he gets into the ring, he's dwarfing Tim Bradley.
He's 170. He's 170 or 171, yeah.
So this is
a light heavyweight.
Well, right. So maybe you can make the argument that if he was more of a professional, he would stay on weight between fights. But
isn't that kind of what makes him endearing in a way,
too?
And
that's never been who Bradley-Rios is. He's not Floyd Mayweather.
No.
He's not
one of these. He talks about how he loves to go out and get enchiladas, in between workouts and whatnot. He's not lying about these things.
No. He and Ricky Hatton, as our boy Zach on both sides tweeted, maybe he and Ricky Hatton could fight at their walking around weight of 185.
Right.
That would be exciting. But this isn't any different than who Bradley-Rios has always been. Big for his weight class guy who drops a bunch of weight, fights. And that's that. And then when you're a guy that drops a lot of weight, there are times you're going to miss weight. But again, he missed weight by 3 ounces, not a pound, not 2 pounds. It clearly wasn't like an FU to Tim Bradley.
No.
So I don't understand where the outrage is coming from.
And especially when the guy's passing out on the scale.
Right.
He tried, man.
If you were more of a professional, you would have passed out before you got on the scale. Okay.
Anyway,
fine.
We'll get into the fight itself. We've got that out of the way. But coming up after the break, we'll talk about the fight. There's plenty to talk about.
Yes.
We'll see how Tim Bradley looked with a new trainer and perhaps where Tim Bradley is headed to now that he's reinvented overnight after being Bradley-Rios. We'll talk about that when we come back here on Fight for Fox. Welcome back to Fight Network Boxing Weekly. Corey Erdman and Morgan Campbell here with you. Morgan checking out the literature here.
Yes.
Shelby's Folly. You definitely have to watch that. Or watch that. You have to read that. That's what it's all about. Bankrupting a town over a prize fight?
Well, yeah, because that's
different times.
That's the one time we've only ever heard of Shelby, Montana, is when they showed up to have this fight. It was Jack Dempsey against who?
God, I actually forget who he fought. Obviously, Doc Kearns was the promoter. We're going to find out.
Oh, man, help me.
This is terrible.
Jack Dempsey and Doc Kearns. Did he have an opponent in this fight?
Yes, he did. This is making us look bad.
Keep going, Corey.
This is making us look really bad.
All he talks about doesn't even talk about the opponent.
Yeah.
This is
keep that poppy hidden behind there as well. Let's talk about the fight itself. Timothy Bradley and Bradley-Rios. We mentioned off the top the least likely of results. If you asked us to make a prediction for this fight coming into it, I think Timothy Bradley by stoppage would have been at the very bottom.
Yes.
If we had Vegas odds, Bradley decision would be up here. Right. Bradley by stoppage would be all the way at the bottom. He manages to stop Bradley-Rios in the 9th round with a body shot. And a lot of people are particularly impressed with Bradley in this fight, and they attribute it to the new affiliation, the new association with Teddy Atlas. One thing, we'll get into whether or not Teddy actually made a difference in this fight, but I want Teddy in the corner, mic'd up, every single fight if possible.
The one thing we did predict that came true was some all-time classic ring corner ranting. The one and what amazed me about the fireman speech was that this fight, as far as fights go, wasn't particularly intense, right? Timothy Bradley was in control of the fight at this point. It's not like he needed some rousing between-round speech to rally him from the depths. It wasn't that at all. Tim Bradley was boxing. He was in control. But Teddy said, listen, man, I came up with this fireman speech. At some point in this fight, I'm giving this fireman speech. Doesn't matter what's happening, so we're going to control the flames. And I'm not going to re-deliver the speech here. We'll post it.
It's everywhere.
And we'll post it on our Twitter feeds and on Facebook, etc. But it's worth a watch. It's all-time classic. It's up there with anything Emanuel Stewart has produced.
That said, as unnecessary as it seemed, and to a degree it was, and as premeditated as it clearly was, and rehearsed as it clearly was, what did we talk about last week? And what were, you and I were watching this fight together, and anytime Rios threw anything, anytime Bradley stood in front of Rios for any amount of time, we're there biting our fingernails. And the reason for that is because of what we talked about last week, that Bradley, in the instances when he has got himself into trouble, the times when he's looked vulnerable are those times when he had just brief mental lapses.
Yes.
And so as unnecessary as that speech may have seemed to us, Atlas clearly knew Bradley needs to be zoned in at all times, because if at any time he strays away and starts to get a little too careless, a little too reckless, this fight can be over.
Well, there was that point early, it was in the 1st or 2nd round, where because this is what caught my eye, because Bradley did this right here. He kind of backed out with his right hand down, and Rios caught him with the left hook, and there was like that collective gasp, and he survived. Yeah. But at the same time, you realize, well, Tim Bradley, you don't want to do that too often. In the fight, it unfolded. I don't know how new of a fighter Tim Bradley is.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Because Tim Bradley in that fight, as long as he was boxing, and as Atlas was asking him to do, boxing, getting in and out, using angles, and just not standing in front of Rios, it was an easy fight for Bradley. But it's not any different from the Tim Bradley who fought Juan Manuel Marquez, who boxed the whole fight and managed never to get drawn into a firefight, and managed never to get drawn into exchanges. So I don't know that this Tim Bradley was all that different from a Tim Bradley we have seen before. I guess the test is going to be, can Teddy Atlas bring out this Tim Bradley consistently?
Well, and that's where I think people need to pump the brakes a little bit on their assessment of this fight, or in labeling what this fight means, because to me, Bradley's best performance is still his win over Marquez.
Yes.
A top 5 pound for pound at the time Juan Manuel Marquez. That, to me, is a better win. People say this is the best that Timothy Bradley ever looked. Maybe you can say it's the best he ever looked, but this certainly isn't his best performance, and it's certainly not his best win. And, that Timothy Bradley that fought that night against Juan Manuel Marquez would have done the very same thing to Brandon Rios. So there again, we have to question how much influence did Teddy Atlas have on this particular fight? Is it a situation where, he just, obviously Teddy inherited a fantastic fighter already. It's like when the guy went to the high school in Iten, Kenya in 1976 and just had all of this talent, and suddenly 4 years later, the entire Kenya track team is from the same elementary school.
Yeah, see, I did this.
I did all this. You still got a ready-made fantastic product already.
Right.
Granted, perhaps from what we saw in their interactions together, maybe this is the right mental fit for Timothy Bradley right now.
Well, the other thing we forget is that often a fighter looks great in contrast to his opponent. And as great as you look, a lot of times it's because your opponent, you're revealing your new sharpness, but you're also revealing how shot your opponent is. And this was kind of this storyline that emerged. It's not different from when Cotto destroyed Sergio Martinez.
Yep.
What we learned more from that fight, more so than Cotto's rejuvenation and rebirth, was that Martinez was shot. Martinez has
got no knees.
Couldn't get through a training camp without beating up his knees and breaking his hands, and this is what happens. It's not different from Manny Pacquiao destroying Oscar De La Hoya. This isn't to say that Manny Pacquiao isn't a great fighter, but it just revealed to us more that Oscar De La Hoya didn't have it anymore. So when you have a fight that's this one-sided between people who are, on paper elite and on paper evenly matched, and especially when the loser after the fight says, you know what, I'm going to retire, I don't have it anymore. It's
that should give you pause though too, right?
Yes.
This is a guy who's maybe 20% of what he used to be or something like that.
Right.
And so, of course, a guy who, once again, admittedly had the worst training camp of his life and was on the verge of retirement.
You also have to wonder how diminished Rios was heading into that ring, given that, again, he lost and regained, 23 pounds, in the space of a couple of days. What that does to your energy levels, to your strength levels, to your central nervous system. He was particularly dull in that fight. It wasn't different from when Rios fought Mike Alvarado the second time.
Yeah, it was the very same thing.
And you could say, man, this is the best Rios has ever looked. Yeah, but it's also the worst Alvarado's ever looked. So they kind of complement each other.
Well, and we're going to hit the break right here. But in my opinion, all of this just balances itself out because we spent a good 15 minutes last week talking about how Timothy Bradley coming into this fight was underappreciated.
Yes.
So listen, if you want to overrate his performance now,
that's fine.
We have balanced it out, and I'm happy because Timmy does deserve to be appreciated.
Yes, he does.
We'll talk about what's maybe next for him and the reaction to this fight when we come back here on Fight Network Boxing Week. Welcome back to Fight Network Boxing Weekly. Corey Erdman and Morgan Campbell here with you in the wake of Timothy Bradley's victory over Brandon Rios over the weekend. Perhaps the last time that we will see Brandon Rios in a boxing ring. Morgan, I think this is going to stick because of, again, how defeated he felt in the training camp, because of how unable Brandon Rios has been to lie to us throughout his career. I genuinely believe him. And when he got up on the stage and he said, why would I make a fool out of myself? Why would I look like a jackass just getting beaten up the rest of my career? I don't feel like doing that. I think for Brandon Rios, he has more than enough money, more money than he ever thought he would ever make in his entire life. And also keep in mind that his mentor, Robert Garcia, also retired at 26, and it stuck.
Yep.
So, the voice in his ear is probably suggesting that he stay on the shelf. So I think that this actually was the last time we'll see him.
And he said, I don't want to hurt myself. I don't want to hurt my family. And to your point, it's not like Rios is a guy who is older but in great shape and is always like searching for like the one missing piece to the puzzle that will make him a great fighter again. I can't figure out what it is. I got to keep fighting until like Shane Mosley is. Rios is a guy who said, hey, I could barely get off the couch to start this training camp. And this was for a big money, big exposure fight that could have led to bigger fights. So if he couldn't get off the couch and motivate himself to train for this fight, why would he come back and keep doing the same thing for a lot less money?
Exactly. I think he is probably looking forward to what we talked about last week with Marcos Maidana, about not having that in mind whatsoever. And if you want to sit on the couch and get Jalisco's and
and again
eat whatever you want, do it.
And maybe this is my signal, so I should just stay off of Twitter. And there's people on Twitter, not even necessarily boxing people, but some of them are boxing, that I just don't follow anymore because they're just too negative and just toxic. It ruins the Twitter experience. But so on the one hand, when a fighter looks shot, we say he should retire. This guy needs to retire. Why is he still fighting? He should retire. And then when that same fighter says, hey, man, I'm retired, we're like, no, you didn't. You're not retired. You'll be back.
You. Yeah.
You'll be back in 6 months.
Right.
Like, just let the man retire.
Yeah.
Like, you just saw what happened. Like, why do you – he doesn't want to get beat up. He references his family. I don't want to hurt my family. So let the man not hurt his family.
Exactly. If he feels they're being hurt,
right,
then they probably are. They've probably said something to him. Don't force him back in the ring.
Exactly.
Yeah. I hope that Brandon stays on the shelf. He's given us more than enough throughout his career, despite what people feel about his weigh-in prowess.
Right. Ruined his legacy. All these great action fights, but man, those 3 ounces, I can't put up with it.
Can't deal with that. Knocks him down. Yeah, definitely knocks him down a peg. Let's talk about what could be next for Timothy Bradley because people are so impressed with what he's doing. Now suddenly we're perhaps talking about a third fight with Manny Pacquiao. Bob Arum said that Pacquiao will review this fight and decide whether or not he wants to fight Timothy Bradley for a third time. Morgan, are you interested in seeing this fight again?
Good question. I wouldn't mind. Actually, I wouldn't mind seeing it.
Wouldn't mind it.
I think Bradley, I don't know if Bradley, well, I think Bradley wins if Pacquiao really was as injured as he said he is, which I'm not sure. I've never been convinced that he was. But if Pacquiao is, in fact, coming off a shoulder reconstruction against sharp Tim Bradley and focused Tim Bradley, and Tim Bradley that's going to box Pacquiao for 12 rounds, like we said last week or 2 weeks ago with the Crawford fight, anyone who's committed to boxing Pacquiao is going to give old Pacquiao problems, old busted shoulder Pacquiao, big problems. What I don't know is if this is the fight that Bob Arum is in fact going to allow to be made. Because if I'm Bob Arum, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, and where the push seems to be clearly that they're trying to cash Pacquiao in and use Pacquiao's name, Pacquiao's stature to build the next pay-per-view superstar, Top Rank has to be wondering, okay, well, which of these guys is more likely to become a sustainable source of pay-per-view revenue? Is
for a longer time.
Yes. Yeah. Is it going to be Tim Bradley, who's already 32, who already has a win over Pacquiao and still couldn't use that to catapult himself into pay-per-view prominence? Or is it going to be Crawford, who is the clean slate and whom HBO and all these other folks are more than happy to try to promote and lend their weight into turning him into the next star?
I don't know why Crawford even needs that, since he has the charisma of Muhammad Ali and the knockout punching power of Ernie Shavers.
And the gun collection of Jermaine Taylor.
That's right. Or of Michael Moore.
Yes.
Remember those old HBO segments? And Michael Moore has like the rifles in the back?
Yes.
It's not stored away anywhere.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, because that's endearing.
Yeah, very endearing. That could be next for Bradley. But then they're talking about potentially, even before this fight, they were talking about him maybe moving up and fighting Canelo Alvarez.
Bradley got a knockout against Bradley-Rios. That doesn't mean that Bradley has anywhere near the punching power he's going to need to get someone to respect him at 154 pounds. I like Tim Bradley.
I do too.
Like, I like Tim Bradley, but
that's roughly the same size of guys that Canelo. Remember when Canelo was knocking everyone out on HBO coming up?
Yes,
it's the same size of guy. Like, don't let him do that again. No. Canelo's out here taking chances and fighting big guys and superstars now. Let him do that.
Yes,
don't give him that. Don't let him fight little Tim Bradley.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if the objective is to get Bradley paid, then you want to see Pacquiao, Canelo potentially. Well, Canelo at this point, he's so muscle bound. He has, He's fighting Cotto at 155. I don't know if Canelo can even make 154.
Yeah, I don't know.
Comfortably without having to do a Bradley-Rios. Oh, I'm 154.2. Let me go run around the block and come back.
Because he was dying to make 152 against Floyd.
Yes. So it would be a big payday for Bradley, but it's not a good matchup.
I want to see Teddy Atlas versus Freddie Roach is what I actually want to see. Well, that, not an actual fight. I mean, like, their corner work against one another.
Well,
and trash talking Freddie Roach.
The corner speeches.
And how Teddy would respond.
The corner speeches, Teddy's already won.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Teddy's already won.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind
That's decided.
I wouldn't mind seeing Teddy Atlas. This is like the fantasy fights. A Teddy Atlas cornered fighter against an Emmanuel Stewart cornered fighter in an intense fight. And who would make the better ring corner speeches in that circumstance? That's pick'em. That's tough.
Oh, man. All right. Well, speaking of people who are fired up, when we come back after the break, a lot of people are mad about Ronda Rousey being on the Ring magazine cover. And since this weekend, Ronda is fighting a former world champion boxer, a woman that we followed for a long time, Holly Holm. I figure we'll discuss, the periphery as much as we can without delving into the fight itself. We'll talk about that when we come back here on Fight Network Boxing Weekly. Welcome back to Fight Network Boxing Weekly. Corey Urban and Morgan Campbell. Tommy Gibbons. That is who Jack Dempsey fought.
There we go. In Shelby,
Just came
Montana.
to me during the break in Shelby, Montana. So
yes.
that is Tommy Gibbons.
There we go.
We
Mystery
have that
solved.
all figured out. Speaking of covers, we mentioned prior to the break we were going to talk about this because some people are fired up. Some people in the boxing community are upset that Ronda Rousey was on the cover of Ring magazine. And obviously she is on there because... for a variety of reasons, but you would think because she's fighting Holly Holm this weekend on UFC pay-per-view, so there was that boxing connection, and Ronda's on the cover with the question, will Ronda Rousey conquer boxing next? The answer to that is no. She is not going to conquer the sport of boxing. Ronda Rousey will not be a boxing world champion at any point in her life. However, is there any real reason to be mad about this? I mean, who cares if she's on the cover of Ring magazine? They're trying to sell magazines.
Well, yes, and as your man and noted media industry analyst Floyd Mayweather pointed out in his interview with I think it was Fight Hype.
Yeah,
where he said, "Yeah, well, look, it's kind of an indication of how Oscar De La Hoya's group has run that magazine." And, the readership is dipping to the point where they need a celebrity, whether or not that person is actually a boxer, but just a celebrity to throw on the cover to catch people's eye and get people to buy this magazine. But the Ronda Rousey boxing talk has always intrigued me, especially when you match the Ronda Rousey.
Has it intrigued you or amused you?
Both. When you match the Ronda Rousey boxing talk with like actual footage of Ronda Rousey boxing.
Right.
There's a huge disconnect.
You get the answer that you're looking for.
Well, yes, because here's the thing about popular sports, which as far as Ronda Rousey's little corner of MMA is a popular mainstream sport.
Yes.
Boxing is still a niche sport.
Yep.
So the people that follow the mainstream sports always think that the people in their mainstream sport are going to be better at the niche sports and the people who specialize in the niche sport.
I like where this is going.
So
this
is it's related to the argument that like all these guys in the NFL can beat Usain Bolt.
Right.
And then every time Usain Bolt sets a record, there's some NFL guys like, oh, I could beat him. And I'm thinking, well, shouldn't you beat some of the slower track guys before you beat the best guy in the world?
Why do you go all the way to the top?
Right?
Like, maybe I can beat like a college sprinter.
Right.
It's something.
Nobody's saying, yeah, I can beat DeAndre Batson or Trell Kimmons. Both those guys would beat you too. They beat anyone in the NFL.
Right.
But no one, they're all, yeah, I can beat them. No, you can't beat
Or like
the
when cyclists,
guy.
run a marathon.
Well, right.
And they're fantastic athletes, and they could probably run like 3:10 or something like that, which might be able to win them a local race.
Yes.
And that's amazing, coming from where they're coming from. But they don't say, hey, Wilson Kipsang, me and you time trial right now.
Right.
Boston, let's go.
Right. But here we have Ronda Rousey, who boxes well, I guess, for an MMA fighter, And at the same time, we have Clarissa Shields, future guest on the show, Clarissa Shields.
Yep, I think next week she might be on.
That's the tentative plan. And she wins U.S. Olympic trials and has to answer to all these reporters asking her how she would do against Ronda Rousey. Clarissa Shields says, this is what she says on Facebook. This is all 100% true. And I don't know how many MMA people watch this podcast or watch the TV show. It's all absolutely true, so don't get mad because it's true. Clarissa Shields says, Olympic medalist Clarissa Shields hasn't lost a fight since early 2012.
One fight in her life.
Right. Look, I'm not responding to no more of this Ronda Rousey bull crap. I won an Olympic gold medal at 17. She never won a gold medal. True. She won bronze. My overall record is 66 wins and 1 loss 3 years ago. I'm 30 pounds bigger than her. She would get destroyed in the ring by me. End of this useless discussion. Right? So I don't get paid to give Ronda Rousey publicity, but people lose their minds. And people who should know better lose their minds about Ronda Rousey. What makes reporters, sports reporters, who want to be credible, they want readers to believe them, want to be known as credible, want to be trusted, what makes them think a boxing non-specialist who weighs 135 can beat the best 165-pound boxer in the world? What makes them think that?
And by the way, you can make the argument that Clarissa, within her bubble, within her frame and her weight class and what she does, might be the most unbeatable and dominant fighter
in the world. Yes. She is on the women's side.
She's so far ahead of everyone else.
Remember Andy Cruz from the Pan Am Games, the 19-year-old Cuban?
Yes, yeah.
Actually, I was going to say she's the female Andy Cruz. Andy Cruz is the male Clarissa Shields.
Yes.
Like that guy, Andy Cruz, he's never going to lose.
Can lose. Yeah, he might.
Unless he breaks both his hands or something. He's not going to lose. You can't touch that guy. And this is Clarissa Shields. Yet some reporter, and all he has, it's a little Google. That's all you have to do. Okay, Ronda Rousey weighs 135. What's Clarissa Shields? 160. How is, in a boxing match?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yet these same reporters want to be trusted. These same reporters want to sound credible on boxing, but can't figure out that a 135-pound non-specialist is at several types of disadvantage against a 165-pound boxing specialist. This is the fight you only propose if you hate Ronda Rousey.
Yes.
And want her to leave the ring in a stretcher, because that's what could happen. But Clarissa Shields is too friendly to put Ronda Rousey on a stretcher. She would carry her. But there is no MMA fans. I'm telling you this now because it's the truth. There's no way Ronda Rousey lays a glove on Clarissa Shields. So stop the madness right here, right now.
Well, and if anything, do I care that Ronda's on the cover of Ring Magazine? No. Of course not. In fact, I think in some ways that's a good thing.
If I had a cigar magazine, I'd put her on the cover because people would buy it. Of course that's what the cover of a magazine is for.
That's what magazines are for. Absolutely. Right. It is a good thing that she is drawing attention to female combat sports. So I'm fine with her being on the cover. It is not something to be upset about. But I guess it is unfortunate that it took Ronda Rousey to get on the cover, and that Clarissa can't get on the cover, that Holly Holm, when she was drawing big crowds in New Mexico, when she was an active boxer, couldn't get on the cover. And it's been since 1977 when Kat Davis was on the cover, and we couldn't get a female fighter on. That is unfortunate. But if this leads to that, then for me, then it's a good thing.
Well, Clarissa might get on the cover in the lead up to the Olympics because...
I hope she does.
Well, because... with Marlon and Esparza not making the Olympic team.
Which I'm upset about, by the way, because heel Marlon.
Yes. She's
great
very
television.
Entertaining. But Clarissa Shields is now by far the highest profile boxer of either gender competing at the Olympic Games. By far. So if Ring Magazine is smart, or Sports Illustrated, or whoever, here you have a chance. And again, dominant. And for an American media machine that's always looking for a dominant American. Here you go. You don't even have to make up the storylines. But like her real life is interesting enough. You don't have to make anything up. You don't have to pretend she's more interesting than she is. She's very interesting.
And we hope that she'll be on next week to plug her documentary as well. But definitely check that out if you can get your hands on it, or if there's a screening in your town. All right, we'll be back with more boxing talk when we return here on Fight Network Boxing Weekly. Welcome back to Fight Network Boxing Weekly. Corey Erdman and Morgan Campbell here with you. Morgan, there seems to be some actual beef between Floyd Mayweather and Adrian Broner now. Now, I don't know how legitimate it actually is.
Right.
But, we've seen sort of cracks in the friendship in the past.
Yes.
This is the first time that Floyd actually responded extremely negatively to Adrian Broner. So you might have heard a couple weeks back, Broner came out and said, F the money team, and it sort of left it at that. Obviously, he was sort of angling for a fight with Ashley Theophane.
Right. Which is smart. On Broner's part, because you pick a fight with Floyd Mayweather, you're going to lose in the ring.
Yeah.
Pick a fight with Floyd Mayweather and he sends his proxy, Ashley Theophane. You could win that fight.
You pick a fight with Floyd Mayweather and get him to respond in any way, and you win in the grand scheme of things. So Floyd has finally responded, and of course he has done so on Fight Hype in another interview with Ben Thompson. And where do you want to start? I mean, there are a lot of gems in this, but
should we start with Floyd Mayweather standing up for transgender rights?
We should definitely do that.
Because remember, at the end of his last fight, Broner had that really awful. And again, Jim Gray, fearless, dogged reporter Jim Gray, was complicit in this stupid
just
one-liner.
Chuckles along. Yeah.
Set him up so for Broner to say, what did he say?
Something about like bringing the woman.
I'll bring the boy out that girl like Bruce Jenner.
Yeah, right.
And here's Mayweather. When it's all said and done, Mayweather says, and okay, we understand that it's Caitlyn Jenner. We're quoting here. When it's all said and done, let Bruce Jenner live his life the way he want to live his life. Bruce Jenner don't even know who Adrian Broner is, but Adrian Broner know who Bruce Jenner is. Which is true.
True.
Which is very
That's
true.
very true. Caitlyn Jenner has no idea who Adrian Broner is. Probably.
Unless Caitlyn's a big fight fan. But again, this is from Floyd Mayweather. Progress. It might be the least homophobic or transphobic thing he'll ever say in public.
Probably, yeah.
So we'll allow him to say Bruce. We know you mean Caitlyn.
Yeah.
But progress.
He's right. Let Caitlyn Jenner live her life, of course.
Right.
There are other sort of gems from this, though. Sort of subtle shots.
Yes.
That he takes at him all the time. Here we go. I don't discredit no one for what they've done. When Adrian Broner won his first world title, I don't know who he fought. I don't even know who the guy was, but I was happy for him, and I always wanted to give Adrian Broner positive advice. I love when Floyd does this, by the way, when he says, I've never seen the guy fight before. The guys he's about to fight,
yes.
I don't know anything about him. Of course he do.
Although Broner's first world title fight likely took place outside Floyd Mayweather's bubble.
Yes.
So he probably really doesn't know much
That's true.
about what happened. Right? This is, unless somebody posted the results on shots.
Right.
Mayweather probably didn't see this. It is fascinating how quickly people can fall in and out of favor with Floyd Mayweather.
Yep.
And Broner's biggest crime was losing, it seems like.
Yep.
If he had kept winning, he would have kept being cool with Floyd Mayweather. Because it's almost because Mayweather was grooming this guy to be the next whatever, to be the next superstar.
And he would say, hey, AB's a four-time world champion, 4 different weight classes. Instead, now he actually does discredit everything. And he says that he doesn't, but like right and here. Says, I mean, he just lost to Sean Porter. You lose to Sean Porter, then you fight for a world title right after that for a vacant title with you and your opponent both coming off of losses. That is discrediting Adrian Broner. That is.
Mayweather takes this guy under his wing, mentors him, helps promote him, uses his own stature and reach to help promote Adrian Broner.
Every step of the way. Gives him the rub every step of the way.
So then when Adrian Broner loses, Mayweather takes that personally.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I vouched for you, and this is how you repay me, losing, especially to Sean Porter?
Yes.
And Mayweather too, with the backhanded, compliment to Paulie. I like Paulie Malignaggi.
Yeah,
but
you went tit for tat.
You went tit for tat with Paulie Malignaggi.
Right.
But that was the fight that really revealed Adrian Broner's limitations, because he went into that fight, telling people that he was going to thrash Paulie Malignaggi, and really sold it. And again, up to that point, even the HBO people, again, were selling him as someone who was like Mayweather but better because he was more aggressive, more offensive, which he isn't.
Yeah.
But this is what he was selling. And when HBO decided that this was the storyline they were going to push, they pushed it. And then he went into this fight with Paulie Malignaggi, and he struggled. What was that, a split decision?
Yep.
Yeah, he barely won that fight. And I don't even disagree with the judge that gave it to Malignaggi. It was a close fight. So this is when we learned who Adrian Broner really was as a fighter.
And Broner's just basically going rogue now.
Yes.
Because if you don't have the affiliation to Floyd Mayweather, he's just going to have to go full-on heel.
Yes.
Which, by the way, it seems like he's doing. Did you watch that interview on Hot 97 yet?
I didn't. I saw parts of it.
Oh, God. So you have to check out Adrian Broner's appearance on Hot 97. So he has an interview with Nessa, and clearly his sole intention heading into this interview is to spit game at Nessa. It's the only thing that he's thinking of doing, despite the fact that he has what he calls a wife at home.
Right.
But in the middle of this interview, when he's questioned about it, he reveals that no, they are not actually married, and that he has no intention of ever getting married. She asked him, like, hey, so are you going to get married at some point? And his line was, if I wanted to put myself in prison, I'd shoot someone on television. So then he's basically said, I don't care about the girl back home, but hey, how about you? Do you have a man at home? And when she responds, yeah, we've been together for 6 months, she's like, well, no wonder you're still happy. But what if a fly boy like me tries to slide underneath you? What would you do? She's like, that would never happen. And he's like, and his other line was, if water hits the pavement long enough, it'll create a dent.
So Adrian Broner was clearly listening to Joe backstage.
Yes.
To get hyped for
and
this.
Understands erosion as well.
Exactly.
Yes.
Here's the thing about Adrian Broner, though. Back to Floyd Mayweather. Mayweather is so hated that you can create a lot of goodwill around yourself just by becoming Floyd Mayweather's enemy. And people, because you set yourself against Floyd Mayweather, people just assume you're virtuous, and they attribute to you all kinds of great things, all kinds of positive attributes that you might actually have, but because you're the guy who hates Floyd Mayweather, they love you. It's like
Manny Pacquiao,
like Marcos Maidana,
who does not
like
not good for women in any way, but because Floyd Mayweather has the charges,
so
Pacquiao becomes the guy.
Broner, if he wasn't acting like I don't know that it matters that he's acting like a womanizing scumbag.
That'll just get erased.
All he has to do is go at Floyd in public, bring up domestic assault charges, and people say, oh, Broner, we love you. We need you to get in the ring and make this right.
Teach him a lesson. Yeah,
Teach him a lesson. Right. But you can pick up all kinds of fans, because whoever fights Mayweather just gets all kinds of fans. People wouldn't, like when Maidana bit Mayweather in that fight, and I remember tweeting, man, Maidana's trash. Yeah. And then people tweeting at me, so what about Mayweather? He's trash. He beat his wife. I'm like, they can both be trash.
Yep. we can all be trash, of course. Yeah.
They can both be trash.
Yes.
You guys are over here lining up behind a guy that has a tattoo of a pistol pointed towards his private parts. Is this really going to be
with a 45 out the car window?
Right, but because he's fighting wife-beating Floyd Mayweather, automatically he's a good guy. So sleazy homemade porn recording Adrian Broner, if he plays his cards right, can somehow become the good guy in all this and make a fair bit of money.
Oh, man. All right. Well, speaking of maybe that would be a good fight, maybe it would not. We have some good fights for you. We're going to give you our YouTube picks.
Mayweather versus Broner would go the same way as Clarissa Shields versus Ronda Rousey.
All right. We're going to give you some actual good fights when we come back. Our YouTube picks of the week. Stay tuned for more here on Fight Network Boxing Weekly. Welcome back to Fight Network Boxing Weekly. Corey Erdman and Morgan Campbell here with you. Time to give our YouTube picks of the week. Now, it is a fairly light week in terms of boxing action. We do have PBC on Spike on Friday, Edwin Rodriguez and Michael Seals. And we also have a show box on Saturday night that has been adapted. It was supposed to be Gary Russell's night, so now we have
Marvin Sansona disappeared.
Right, so now we have Frank Galarza headlining that card as well. But my YouTube pick is meant to illustrate that sometimes you can tune in, and you should always tune in because you can always find something special even when it's not supposed to happen in the world of boxing. So my YouTube pick of the week that was very recently uploaded, it might be a fight that maybe you read about in the past, but you can finally find it on YouTube. It is William Hammer Jones taking on Tim Rabin. It is a USA Tuesday Night Fights classic from the Blue Horizon in 1992. Hammer Jones was the 18-0 prospect coming into this fight, knocking out everybody. Tim Rabin, a former Golden Gloves champ who really looked like he had no chance in this fight, gets his ass handed to him for the first 2 rounds, and then something special happens in the third. Check this fight out. It is the absolute mayhem. It wasn't even supposed to make the broadcast that night. It did, and it was amazing. So we're going to add that onto the playlist. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it.
So, perfect. So my fight is from March of 1987, ABC Wild World of Sports. When you watch this on YouTube, you get to see the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. You get to see the guy fall off the ski jump.
Yes.
All of that stuff. March 1987, Pernell Whitaker against Roger Mayweather from Norfolk, Virginia, the Scope Arena. Things that stand out about this fight are, like, one, we remember Pernell Whitaker as like this defensive wizard who didn't really engage with people, but this is early career Pernell Whitaker. You get to see aggressive Pernell Whitaker. You also get to see bad guy Pernell Whitaker. One of the fighters gets his pants pulled down. The referee gets hit. There's knockdowns. And the commercials between the fights, there's a commercial with Father Guido Sarducci.
Perfect.
There's a commercial with Joe Isuzu. This whole thing, like, it couldn't be any more 80s if, like, Ready for the World played the national anthem. And it's an entertaining fight. Kind of a one-sided result, but the action is very back and forth.
High-level boxing, of course.
Very high-level boxing, and it's a fight. Like, when you hear the name Mayweather, you think, slick, strategic fighters. But Roger wasn't. Roger was more of a stalker.
Yeah.
And then again, you think defense first with Whitaker, but early career Whitaker was very aggressive. This fight is dynamite.
All right. We'll add those to the playlist. Definitely check those out. Morgan and I will both tweet that out, but that is all the time we have for this edition. No bell. That's the 10-second mark. We're going to wrap things up right here.
Touch gloves.
The set's falling apart.
Boom.
There we go.
Yes.
All right. We'll be back next week.